Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Haz'el Inspirations. I'm your host, Leah. I'm here with my friend, Mr. Ford. We are in our beautiful state of Virginia, and it is a glorious day. It's a beautiful weather. We're at a lakefront, and the scenery is awesome here. We are going to highlight a few areas, but mainly we're going to highlight about the legal representation of while you're incarcerated and when you come home as a reentry. So we're going to cover about three different areas. We're going to talk about the barriers that we're faced with, and that can be with the legal representation, whether to get a paralegal, a public defender, or a paid attorney. And then we want to talk about legal assistance, and we want to see how those components tie into one another. So I'm going to actually let you take it away because you're more knowledgeable about this area than I am. And good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you feeling today?
I'm good.
Good, good, good,
Yeah.
good. And your weekend?
It was great. Yeah.
All
Watching
right.
all the progress that's being made, the things that you're doing. I can't thank you enough for coming down here.
You're welcome.
And you know, if you understood the impact that just the word of what you're doing, I'm spreading that word.
Thank you.
And I'm talking about my family, friends,
Yes.
people that you don't even know. They hold you in high esteem and regard.
Yes.
They're paying attention. They're looking for ways to support. So just, I don't know what your inner drive is and why you're doing it all the way, but just keep doing it because you're
I think it's my calling.
right.
I think it's one of my callings. I think I have like 4 different callings, and then this is one passion of mine.
Okay, so yeah, I
Yes.
just want to encourage you on
I
that.
want to make everyone aware of different, because sometimes we turn a deaf ear and we don't listen to the small little things that people have to say, but we'll listen to the media. We'll look at things on the internet instead of hearing it firsthand from somebody that's been down that road and experienced it. So that's why I'm doing this.
All right. Yeah, I greatly appreciate that. So, it's hard. It's hard to comprehend how people could have insight on something that aren't in that situation necessarily.
Yeah.
So, when it comes across or when it comes along, I'm going to grab it with 2 hands and make sure that we take full advantage of that and use it for our benefit.
Because a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know. And that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about, the legal issues. We covered in our last segment, we covered about the mental health, and we covered about the reentry process. And we touched a little bit on finances, but now I want to get to the legal representation, because I know that there is barriers, especially for someone who's not knowledgeable. Well, when they are charged or facing charges, and then they're sentenced, and there's conflict of, okay, well, I can't afford a lawyer, because some criminal attorneys, they want a large sum of money down. Some of them do pro bono, depending on the case. And then you have the public defender, who is pretty much assigned to those that can't afford one. But do you feel as though that, what is the stigma between the representation?
Between a public defender and a paid lawyer? I mean, I can tell you in just a generic sense, public defenders have a large caseload.
Right.
So you could have one public defender, like the situation we talked about the other day dealing with counselors. And you were saying, well, how can inmates inside of the system be properly aided if they only have one counselor for 50 people?
Right.
And I said, well, it's more like one counselor for 100 or 200 or 300 people. Well, that's the same thing for public defenders. They, in many counties, they could have 300 people in a caseload for a 1 month period of time. So if you think about that, it's hard to comprehend what that means until you understand what is involved in preparing for trial.
Yeah.
And the research that you have to do, the interviews with the client, investigation of the police evidence, ensuring that your client's rights were guaranteed, um, interviewing witnesses and conducting your independent investigation, not just relying upon the case file of the people trying to prosecute and convict, but going out and doing independent research and interviewing witnesses that maybe your client hasn't even thought of. And you're saying for someone to do that for 300 people in a month's period of time, it's really not possible. There's a case that talks about this, Loeffler versus Cooper, and another case, Missouri versus Fry. And what they were explaining in the case was about the guilty plea procedures. And they were saying that 94 to 97 of all cases are decided by guilty pleas. So only 6 to 3% of cases are going to trial. And so really, and so you have to, a person, if you're going to think about that, you have to say, well, why are 97? That's almost saying that the police are never wrong. Every time they slap the cuffs on somebody, they're never wrong. So why is that? And it's most likely because of the caseloads of these public defenders, and lawyers' costs sometimes are so outrageous.
Yeah, 5,000, 10,000 for a retainer, and then each time you go to court, what's that? Like another $900, $1,000?
It could be anything, and a lot of people are not given bail. So how can you come up with the money for a paid lawyer? Most likely, you are going to be given a public defender, and I can tell you, not to speak bad against the public defenders, but because they have a lot of work to do. And I've had some public defenders that were way better than paid lawyers, just to let it be known. But at the same time, they don't know who you are usually until they walk into the court that day of your trial.
You know what? Somebody else said that to me too. They said, yeah, I was assigned a public defender, but they gave me a hearing or court date 2 months down the line, and I still haven't talked to the public defender. And then all of a sudden, you pop into court, and the public defender introduces himself, like, "Hey, I'm your public defender." Okay, well, when did we have time to talk about what my case is? Oh, we're going to postpone it. Oh, you mean to tell me I sat in jail for 2 months, and I come here and I'm thinking I'm getting out? You want to tell me we're going to postpone it?
Right. Now, I can tell you there is a difference between a public defender and a paid lawyer. But now, one thing that I see sometimes is a public defender sometimes is actually better than a paid lawyer because they are there all day and they do a lot of dealing, wheeling and dealing in the courthouse.
Okay.
So, just strategically, I'm just, I'm not making a commercial for a lawyer's office. I'm just telling you, like, I got the inside track, and I've been dealing with this for a long time. I've been going to court many times, and really the times I had a public defender, I wasn't convicted, but the times I had a paid lawyer, I was convicted. The case that I did the 22 years for, I had a paid lawyer. So I can't promote a public defender or promote a paid lawyer more than a public defender. It's really about the person sometimes.
The person.
And due to the fact it's almost like taking your car to Jiffy Lube for an oil change, and they change oil all day. Okay, it might be a cheaper location, but they do it all day. They do it every day. So they probably could change your oil pretty good. So I can't tell you, like, it's better to take it to the dealer. It's better to take it to the first class auto shop, because Jiffy Lube changes oil every day, all day. So they probably are better at doing it because that's what they do every day. So depending on the type of case that you have, now if it depends on your type of case, and then it depends on your type of money. So a person has to really know what they are looking for out of representation, just like a person needs to know what they're looking for if a person was going to fix their car. Like if you bring your car to the shop and just say, "I heard a noise, fix it." I mean, I don't know what the price will be because they could tell you anything. You don't know. And that's why usually you want to have a friend to look over your car, or make sure you have some knowledge of auto mechanics or something like that before, so you can be specific. I need this done. A lot of times what we're doing, because we are blind to the fact, and when I say we, I mean our people or anybody that isn't all the way familiar with the criminal justice system and how it works, is that we bring our case to them and we say fix it. Now we're not aware of what we actually need. Like, you have to be really involved with your case. So if you say, look, I need this person interviewed, I looked at this evidence, I need to look at that closer, and I need to see if they signed off on this or what the quality of their investigation pertaining to this evidence was. I need you to look into that. So you tell the lawyer, you can be involved and give clear instructions to the lawyer on what you want done. The importance of doing that is you have to look at everything dealing with the criminal justice system and prosecution in the long the long game. So you can look at it merely as, I'm trying to get out of this conviction, right? Or I'm trying to make sure I'm not convicted. But your case is in many stages. So, you have your arrest and arraignment, you have your preliminary hearings, you have your grand jury and indictments, and then you have your, pretrial motions and your suppression hearings, and then you have your motions in limine before you start the trial. Then you have the trial itself, and then you have post-trial motions that you might want to make, and then you have appellate processes, and then you have habeas corpus processes, which are down the line. So, but when you enter into these cases, you really have to be looking like a long game strategy.
What are we saying, like 2 to 3 years or longer?
Well, you always have to be looking, like, it's like if you're a good boxer and you go into the boxing ring, well, you can't just think that you're going to knock the guy out in the first round.
Right.
So they train you to have a good wind stamina so that you can last 12 rounds.
Right.
Okay. So if you enter into a case and believe that I'm just going to knock this out the park before the preliminary hearing, you're not preparing.
You're not
correctly.
Preparing. Right.
So and that includes what you say. That's why they tell people, don't make any statements to a lawyer, because you don't know how this will affect the case. So be quiet. You're not looking at it with a legal mind, and we're looking at it for the long game. You're looking at it for the short game. You're just trying to get out of handcuffs. You probably should be quiet, because you don't really know the impact of your words. It can affect you 5 years down the line in the habeas corpus post-conviction process, and you didn't really comprehend the meaning of it back here. So, based on that, we have to have more knowledge about what we're looking for when we're going into the process for looking for a lawyer. You also have to be aware of who you are and your status as a person, and make sure that the people who you think have jurisdiction over you actually have jurisdiction. So you have to understand what your status is and their jurisdiction.
Okay.
So, I mean, you really one of the things that we teach in the temple is really being aware of our status, jurisdiction, our rights, the law. Because if you're not, you're like a blind man walking into a gauntlet. You don't know where it's coming from. You have to have more knowledge, especially if, we've all had enough experience in this world to say, some people are kind of a target. They can be a target of the criminal justice system. So we can't walk around like we don't know. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make any sense. So no one will have pity on people who don't know and won't know.
Okay.
So being that we know, and being that we should understand, we've had enough warning at this point to say, hey, you guys got to step up your knowledge of the legal system.
Right.
You can't just be throwing your neck on that guillotine like that and hoping the guy don't pull the cord. Like, they're going to pull the cord. So learn from all of these examples and change what it is that you're knowing going in. It's too late to start thinking about all of these things that we're talking about and going to talk about at the time that the so-called crime is committed, or at the time that you might run into a situation, because right now, hey, it's a nice day, but anything can happen.
Anything can happen. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It could be anything from a traffic stop you get pulled over because you're speeding, to just parking in the wrong area, like I did this morning, in a residential area. You can get a ticket. But when you're trying to defend yourself and says, I think that some accountability has to be on us. You're in the wrong. Like I said, I was in the wrong for parking in a residential spot. But I wasn't aware because I was looking for a signage. But when I'm trying to defend myself, sometimes my voice doesn't carry like it should. So that's why we look to have legal representation. Because I think that as they say, the lingo that they speak is what is known in the legal system. So I may not be speaking their lingo. But on the other hand, it's always good to have some type of knowledge base. I'm gonna be honest with you. It doesn't matter if you're a homemaker. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher. It doesn't matter if you're a nurse. In the healthcare, you should know some aspect of the legal system, because this is what affects us every day. And I know that when you were on the inside, you assisted with the legal representation. And that's what I want to cover with you. Like, how was that assistance to others? Your knowledge base.
A lot of it is education.
Okay.
So there's some cases that explain, they say, inmates access to law libraries and legal materials is very important, because sometimes it's almost therapeutic. Because it can bring someone into understanding about how they even are in that situation. A lot of people don't understand, how did I get in here? Because I thought I said this, I thought my lawyer said that, I thought they didn't have this evidence. And you go through the process of learning the law and the procedures, then it can make you more aware of how you ended up in there. Like we talked about the other day, that mental health crisis situation. Well, if you don't comprehend how you ended up in the prison, and it's a mystery, then that can that can add to your so-called mental health problem, because it's unclear. You don't understand. You can't even explain it to your family. If you, like you said a second ago with the legal lingo, well, jurisdiction, it's really two words. So juris means right, and rights, and diction is your words. So based on your words, if you use the right words or the wrong words, it's going to dictate whether or not you are convicted and sentenced to time in prison. Not necessarily whether you did it, but what kind of words you use. So we are very conscious and careful of what type of words we use. A person or persona is that through which sound is made, per and sona. So you, a person, making words, and if these are the right words, that is what will either free you or land you in prison. That becomes education. You know what I'm saying? That becomes something that we have to be educated on. You say, well, look, when you're walking into this realm, see those same words that you're using right here, and a lot of guys that come into the law library and they say, man, look, this. And I'm saying, all right, I understand what you mean.
You understand.
I understand perfectly what you mean. However, every single word that you just now said doesn't mean that in that room.
Right.
Everything you said means you're guilty.
Right.
So if you want to understand how you're in, or how to get out, or how not to get in deeper, you have to understand that language over there.
Right.
So this is going to be, and it's not just merely about so-called beating this case. This is not about just freeing you, because what good is it if you get freed and you go right around the corner and get jammed up again? And I've had that happen. I've worked on people's cases and they have gotten out, and I've seen them in another compound on the yard.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, well, what happened? I thought that you got out. Oh man, this happened, that happened. I thought we talked about that. Or so they still didn't catch on to the policies and procedures, because it's if you get deeper into the knowledge, it's without going too deep, it's Masonic.
CC.
It's dealing with, Masonic terminology, Latin, um, things that are not within our regular speech. So a lot of it is imported.
Okay.
A lot of imported terminology. It's not known what so-called American citizen is speaking Latin.
Right.
We're not talking about Spanish. We're talking about Latin.
Latin.
So, and you're being brought into a realm. I don't care if you were a doctor.
Right.
I don't care if you were an astronaut, an astrophysicist, a biochemist. You don't understand anything about legal terminology. Right. So it doesn't have to do with anybody being smart or stupid or anything like that. It just means that in the same way that you wouldn't want to be tried in a mechanics court, right? Because you don't understand anything about mechanics, but you could be a very intelligent woman. But I don't speak that. So if the outcome is going to come out to transmission, time and chain,
I don't know.
You're gonna give me time based on that. Well, that's gonna be a problem because I don't understand that language. I don't understand that culture.
Right.
So, and you're being subjected to people who wheel and deal in that.
Right.
And they play. Sometimes the whole system is really meant, in some ways, to play upon people's ignorance of that. So,
and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about that because you shared something with me about documents and the laws and what was your terminology that you used? You're going to hold me accountable for this code and violation that I've never heard of. I mean, I think the code book is that thick.
Bigger.
It's probably bigger. Volumes, and you think that I went all through from page 1 to whatever 2,000, 3,000, and know all the codes? I mean, what is a million codes? Over.
Could be easily over.
Yeah. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk more about this in a minute. So thank you. Okay, stop.